Well, as much as I would like to talk about the apparently impending war with Iran that is being stoked by our leaders in Washington, they did something that is also quite damaging, though unsurprising, but I think informative for the general public. In the process this time of renewing FISA Section 702, which is all of the unconstitutional Fourth Amendment violations that were exposed by Edward Snowden, the incredibly unpopular program under which we as Americans have no right to privacy and our lives are open books. The regime is free to look into whatever private details of the lives of enemies of the regime they want, and they use this information to blackmail or effectively unperson whoever they want. This is how the intelligence agencies keep the reins on the American people and make sure that we don't step out of line and that we do not interfere or run contra to their interests. Because in the words of Chuck Schumer, the Intel folks, if you go up against them publicly and you try and take them on, challenge any of their sacred cows, or disagree with them on any political positions, they can screw you 6 ways to Sunday. This is a very large part of what Chuck Schumer was referring to when he referred to those 6 ways to Sunday that the Intel folks can screw you over. And apparently, Mike Johnson got the message, the new Speaker of the House, who, for at least the most recent past, when he was just a regular rank-and-file member of the House of Representatives, he was a strong opponent of FISA Section 702. He was against this because, of course, it was unconstitutional and a violation of the civil rights of Americans. And you have to say that in order to get elected, because who the hell would vote for a jackass that wants to violate our constitutional rights and turn this country into a police state? A police state and mass surveillance, not popular. Yet Americans in 2024 are more heavily surveilled than the citizens of East Berlin were at the height of the Cold War. And now Mike Johnson has single-handedly extended this policy, though up until this point he was supposedly an opponent of it. And so when asked a question about this contradiction, about this betrayal, about this flip-flop, what is it that old Mike Johnson had to say? Well, he said, yes, I opposed FISA 702 when I was just a regular old congressman. But you see, after I became Speaker of the House, the FBI took me aside, and they showed me some things, and I realized I had no choice. I have to reauthorize FISA 702. That's literally what he said. He said, I believe that this was wrong and illegal and a violation of our civil rights until I got into power. Okay, I got power. I became the Speaker of the House, and so the FBI pulled me aside and they said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to reauthorize FISA 702, or else. That's literally it. Now, he didn't give us details. He didn't tell us what they showed him. Because, of course, this is all about secrecy. We're not allowed to know because we, as far as they're concerned, we're less human than they are. We are inferior. It's as simple as that. It's a matter, to quote the Acolyte trailer, so this is something that our Democrat friends should agree with. I'm going to use one of their lines that they found so inspiring. It's not about good versus evil. It's about power and who gets to use it or wield it or whatever the stupid line was in that trailer. What it's all about is ensuring that the people in Washington, in Langley, that they have power over us so that we cannot control their actions. They're afraid of us. We are no different than cattle, which must be fenced in. As long as you stay in the pasture in which we are herded, we could live a fairly comfortable life, feasting on grass that was cultivated by the ranchers. But if ever you were to step over the line, if you were to try and leave for greener pastures, or even for, let's say, less hospitable pastures, let's say you chose a tougher life, but you said, you know what, it's my decision, and I'm choosing to lead my life this way. That's when you run up against the barbed wire fence of FISA 702. And really, that's the last line of defense for them. There's all these other things that they can do ahead of time to screw with you. Obviously, we know you've seen the visual representations of the Federal Register, which grows by thousands of pages every year. John Stossel used to show the entire Federal Register in volumes. It was, a whole room full of books stacked to the ceiling. All these laws you could never read, and that's the point, is so that legality is opaque, so that they have all these obscure things that they can pull out of their ass to screw with us, and in order to control anyone who does not support the agenda, who does not support the next war with Iran, or who does not want to defend Taiwan from a Chinese invasion that was instigated by members of Congress. Or if you simply just, let's say, want to cut the budget of a certain government program. There's always another boogeyman, whether it be our fellow Americans or foreigners like the Iranians, whether it's Trump supporters, Persians, Chinese. There's always some boogeyman that people within the regime use in order to justify why they should be more powerful than us. Because you see, we're supposed to trust in the FBI because they are much wiser and smarter than we ever could be. And that's why Congress works for them and not for us. Congress isn't afraid of the voters. They're afraid of the regime. It's that simple. And that really should tell you everything you need to know about the real threat of so-called domestic terrorism. If the voters were really a threat, if there was this threat of a violent insurrection that could somehow actually happen in America, I'll tell you what, the politicians would be scared of stabbing their voters in the backs. They'd be worried about being assassinated. They're not. Why? Because we citizens are peaceful people. We are simple tax cattle to be herded. We don't act violently because we are rational human beings. We don't think that way. But the people in power do, and that's why they're in power. The most bloodthirsty and ravenous among us are those who float to the top of the political ladder. They're the ones who are literally willing to kill in order to get their way. The people who spearhead these foreign conflicts and domestic operations against American citizens, they are responsible for more deaths than any street gang or revolutionary group or so-called insurrectionist militia ever will be, or would be, or ever could be. And it is through sheer force of power and coercion that the worst people in our society, the least respectable, the most contemptible, that they are the ones who hold the most power and command the most respect, at least on paper. These are our so-called elites, when in reality they are relatively unimpressive, though very violent thugs. So the next time you see your local congressman, if you ever see your local congressman, these days the American population is so big and we have so few members of Congress that they have an easy job staying hidden. It's not like how it was when the country was founded, where they intended that your member of Congress would be like a member of your community, someone that you would actually kind of like see around at the grocery store or something like that, or run into them at the local pub. Those days are long past, though occasionally you see these congressmen, they hold so-called town hall meetings. If you go there, I implore you to remind your congressman that the general public has nothing but contempt for him, his friends, everything he stands for, and the very pretense of representation that they wrap themselves in order to justify their crimes against the public. That is, unless your congressman is one of the minority. I think it was like 147 people maybe in Congress who voted against renewing FISA 702, in which case I would not say this to them over this issue, although there's probably plenty of other issues in which you could maybe slightly reword what I said, and it would apply to them all the same. The Tom Masseys of the world, who are good on most things because they're actually there for like genuine reasons, and they believe something, and they just kind of, they've been there a long time, and they just kind of keep on, doing the right thing. Those people, very few and far between. So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one, and hopefully we're not at war with Iran.